Hello, this is going to be my review of the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. WOLFANG GA200 action camera, which you see here. I have owned, I don't know how many, but I think over 25 action cameras. And while that does not make me an expert, I do feel that has helped me gain some perspective on these cheap action cameras, and I just love collecting these because they're cheap, and each of them is a little bit different in its own way. So I am very happy to be able to share my thoughts and to talk about how this camera compares to other cameras. There are many action cameras available on Amazon. Many are less than $100 and many are around $50 to $60. This particular camera was $90 with a 45% off coupon at the time I purchased it. At the time that I'm making this video, that 45% coupon for $90 is no longer available, so just keep in mind if you're interested in purchasing a specific camera, please feel free to look at the prices over many days, over many weeks, or even months, and maybe eventually you'll see a discount that you haven't seen before, and that might be a good time to purchase the camera. So what can I say about the WOLFANG GA200 action camera? I purchased it because there's a very nice coupon available, which unfortunately is not available at the time that I'm making this video. But that's just to say that prices will fluctuate, so I'm not going to say, well, I paid $55, I paid $50, because that can very well change in a matter of days. This action camera has two screens, takes photos, videos, records video all the way up to 4K, 30 frames per second, though I choose to use the setting 1080p 60 frames per second. So as to the review of this camera, I'm just going to say, as a short summary, this is in my opinion, this is a very good action camera. The video quality is very acceptable, 1080p 60 frames per second. And the image stabilization, which is another feature on this camera, is, in my opinion, quite good. It's not perfect, but it is very, very good. This camera has a very, very responsive touch screen, which you can actually scroll using kind of that scrolling gesture, and it is very responsive. It kind of responds every single time. There's also buttons here that you can use to go back, like that button. There's the OK button to take photos and videos. And to get to photo mode, it's very easy. You just swipe left, and then to get back to video mode, swipe right. So, as I said, in my opinion, this is a very good camera with very acceptable quality. I like the 1080p 60 frames per second setting, and you also have the option to have image stabilization. First, make sure you turn this off, distortion calibration, and then your video stabilization, image stabilization setting will be here. You can turn that on or off. I personally like to have distortion calibration on, which removes the option to have image stabilization. Oh, there we go. So video image stabilization is no longer there. So I do like this camera a lot, mainly because there are a lot of, am I recording already? Oh, I was in driving mode for some reason. Oh. Okay, so there is a touchscreen, as I said. You have a lot of settings, such as distortion calibration to correct the fisheye effect, distortion correction, so that reflects more reality, no wide angle distortion, and then you also have the option to have the narrow angle instead of the wide angle. So there's a lot of settings here to kind of customize how the video looks. And there's also a very functional camera that's included, so you can take pictures. It defaults to 24 megapixels. Now the quality is not stellar, but for a cheap action camera, the quality is very good. Like I said, which I'll include a clip of this at the end of the video, but I did really like the image stabilization feature. It did keep the video from looking shaky, even as I was walking and kind of shaking the camera. It's always nice to have image stabilization. Some cameras will have image stabilization, some cheap cameras, and it's not very good. So keep in mind, not all image stabilization is the same. If you see EIS, electronic image stabilization, or anti-shake, as a feature on a camera that you're looking at, it doesn't mean that it's going to be good, meaning it doesn't really minimize shake very well. I like the image stabilization here. I like the quality of 1080p 60 frames per second. As usual with a cheap action camera, for best results, try to record when it's sunny, when there's a lot of light available, and that'll make the picture quality look better. And try to keep the camera, try to not shake the camera too much, or maybe keep it on a surface. if you're not using image stabilization, to just minimize the shakiness. If you are using image stabilization, that'll definitely help. So this camera, it had some nice accessories, actually 2 batteries, no memory card included, but the USB cable actually does connect to another accessory that's included with this camera. Sorry, which is a docking station for charging both batteries at the same time, which is phenomenal. Allows you to charge both batteries, or one battery if you'd like, much faster than it would charge as if you were charging it the battery through the USB cable with the camera. So nice accessory here. You have this docking station for charging your batteries. You have 2 batteries included. Some other kind of standard accessories here, remote control, which I'm not really going to use. Some other mounts, but overall video quality very good in my opinion. 1080p 60 frames per second is a good setting. Picture quality overall very good in my opinion. Easy to use, responsive touchscreen, and great image stabilization. You also have this dual screen, this front screen that you can activate by holding down the down button, at which point it will switch to the other screen. You can see me waving in the background, and then holding down the down button again will get you back to the main screen. So microphone for capturing audio is fairly good. It does pick up the sound very well. The audio is not perfect. I mean, the camera microphone is not perfect, but it still captures audio very well. So overall I'm very satisfied with this camera. It's not too heavy. It's kind of lightweight, even when the battery's inside. Does not include a memory card, so you'll have to purchase a memory card separately, but mainly good 1080p 60 frames per second video and great image stabilization. So overall, I am very satisfied with this camera. I liked it. Not going to guarantee that you're going to have a good experience with this camera. I did not test the camera underwater, so keep in mind this is not a review of the underwater capabilities with the underwater housing on. But so far, in my opinion, good camera. I'm very happy with it so far. This is the WOLFANG GA200 action camera, the WOLFANG GA200. Video samples will follow shortly if you'd like to see how this camera records video, and if you think it's good quality, and maybe hopefully that will help your decision if you're thinking about purchasing this camera review. This is my review of the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. I am very satisfied with this camera. Good image stabilization and good quality video. And you have another screen, a docking station for charging 2 batteries at the same time. 2 batteries included, but just keep in mind, this is not a review of the underwater capabilities, and a memory card is not included. You will need to separately purchase a micro SD memory card. Video samples and photo samples will follow shortly. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. 1080p video test, 60 frames per second. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. 1080p video test, 60 frames per second. Video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Hello, this is a 1080p 60 frames per second video test with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. 1080p resolution, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Set 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Hello, this is a video test with image stabilization, 1080p, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. This is a video test with image stabilization. Just going to see how well the camera will stabilize the video while we are walking. This is the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Again, I just want to show you that we are recording with this camera recently purchased on Amazon, the WOLFANG GA200 action camera, and this is an image stabilization video test. So we're going to just walk and see how well the camera will stabilize the video. Image stabilization is an option, so you don't have to have it turned on. Here we have turned it on for the purposes of this video test, and ideally this feature will serve to minimize shake. So very much looking forward to seeing that, hopefully with this camera, with this feature. This is an image stabilization video test with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Normally without image stabilization, the camera will be shaking quite a bit while we're walking, so hopefully this feature will minimize the shakiness. Image stabilization video test with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Just gonna take another lap and we should be good. So hopefully the video will be stabilized. I'm very excited to see the footage when I do it on the computer. This has been an image stabilization video test, 1080p 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera, recently purchased on Amazon. Video test with image stabilization, the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Well, this is a 1080p 60 frames per second video test with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Hello, this is a 1080p video test. 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. An 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. Video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. 1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA100 action camera. The WOLFANG GA200 action camera, sorry. This is the WOLFANG GA200, not 100. .1080p video test, 60 frames per second with the WOLFANG GA200 action camera.